Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly AgWeather update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. I want to do a quick recap of the volcanic eruption from the 15th and bring you up to speed on some of the latest observations we have of sulfur dioxide in the stratosphere. Remember, we talked a lot about that in last week's video. What we've got is a view here. Now, this is from a polar orbiting satellite, and we're going to look here right in this particular area. This was back on the 18th. And what you've got here is the size of the sulfur dioxide plume from that eruption. Now you notice there's some missing data here and here. There's like stripes. And the reason for that is because this comes from a polar orbiting satellite. So in other words, it doesn't get complete coverage every time it passes over the equator. But you can kind of stitch together the images in your mind here. Now this was on the 18th, just 3 days after the eruption. And that was the extent of the sulfur dioxide plume. And what we want to do is take a look at it now. So you notice that here, that sulfur dioxide plume has moved, and it's now here. But it is much more dispersed than what it was. And this just reinforces kind of the dialogue we had that suggested that this particular volcanic eruption was not going to have or create a massive disruption in climate because of putting sulfur dioxide deep into the stratosphere. So this is just a follow-up to what we discussed last week. I just want to continue to keep you up to date on what I know. What I also know is that we've been quite wet. In fact, our wet has come via snow and it's come via ice. But we need to get the big picture about this down. So the last 30 days, looking at percent of normal precipitation across parts of the state of North Carolina, we've been anywhere from 100 to 100 and almost up to 200% of normal on precipitation. And the very good news about this pattern is what it's done to our drought. I'm going to show you that in a few moments. But I want you to see what we have on this side of the Cotton Belt, back here in Texas and Oklahoma, getting into this region. We're still battling with some very dry conditions, as is California. And the upcoming pattern is going to provide a bit of a shift, but I don't think it's going to be corrective at all on this drought, but may continue to help eliminate what leftover drought we have. Because see, the latest drought monitor released on the 20th still shows pockets around North and South Carolina and Virginia. But as I always do, what's important to do here is to look at the change maps. And if we just look back over the last week, we had a 1-class improvement. You go back over the last month. Let's go back, just to a month. We've had in some places 2 to 3 class improvement, while the Southern Plains drought has just continued to get worse and worse. So I look at this and just see a lot of positivity here about rebuilding moisture this winter. We need to see where we're going to go from there, because right now that moisture is locked up in some snow. This was a view yesterday on Sunday, just looking down from our polar orbiting satellites again. And we can see here the extent of that snow cover. And to the south of it, we certainly had some ice in this region. And a week ago, the models picked up on this, but I only get to talk to you once a week. And it was something that rapidly evolved throughout the week, and now we can see the true effect of this. Now, throughout the week, anytime you want, I'm going to provide you with one of my favorite resources. It's this website right here. It's the National Operational Hydrologic Remote Sensing Center, NOHRSC.NOAA.gov. Go to it. When you get there, go to the snow products, and this is what you can do. You can make these maps. I'm showing you the last 72 hours of accumulation. So there it is. We can see our swath here of some places between 2 to 6 inches of snow that fell from this particular last snowstorm over the weekend. But some of the other great things you can do with this is you can make seasonal accumulation maps. And what I love about this is that I live right here, and what we kind of jokingly call the great snow hole of 2022. I'm right there. And you all have had, across much of the state of North Carolina, more snow than I've had. We got a dusting last night. You may add that dusting. I'm looking at my window to see it. You add that dusting here to what we've had on the year. We may right now have just surpassed the 1-inch mark. That's it. Very, very little snow in this area. Another thing you can do if you want to see how much snow water is in those Appalachian Mountains, so you can come over here and click on National Analysis, see it up at the top, and then you can choose that region. I'll just pick right there on the Appalachian Mountains, get snow water equivalent, and let's blow that up so you can see it. And now you can see how much moisture in inches is if in those mountains should that snow melt. So we got a couple of inches up there, maybe a little bit more than that, maybe up to 3 or 4. So just a great resource and a great tool. Now, unlike December, January has been much colder than average, and you're looking here at the temperature ranks for the month of January. Now, what I want to ask is the pattern going to shift around? Are we going to go back to maybe some of the warmth we saw in December? We need to see if that's possible as we get into February and March. And the first thing we have to do is remember what January's pattern shift looked like. It was right here. Big ridge became established over the west, and the flow came around it and then dove into deeper troughs and then went here into the North Atlantic into a blocked pattern. How do I know it's blocked? When there's a big high pressure ridge over a low, north of a low, then the flow tends to do something like this at times. And that setup means that it's moving more north-south than west to east. So the troughs that were anchored here, well, really they were anchored up over the Hudson Bay, kept us and is going to continue to keep us through the end of January under some colder conditions. But the MJO is doing something interesting. It was here in December and early January, came out into phase 8. It's currently right here back into what we call null space. And all that means is we don't have a strong signal on where the MJO's biggest convection is. It could be over by Africa, right? Then move over the Indian Ocean, then eventually over Australia and out into the Pacific. That's how it typically moves. But right now, it's not strongly in one phase. It appears it's going to pop out somewhere in phase 5, 6, or 7, possibly. To pick which one will be quite challenging, which means I'm going to rely a bit more on ocean temperatures as an indicator of what the atmosphere is doing. So we are watching this La Nina slowly fade, and it's fading quickly over here, the Western Pacific, but still maintains a pretty dominant presence in the Eastern Pacific. And we still got this cold water in place there. I think all of this is critical to our upcoming pattern because when we look throughout history at all of the La Nina events, it's all these spikes down on this figure, I can grab all of them and stitch them together and put together a story. And what it says is February to March, during those La Nina years, okay, when they're typically fading, that ridge wants to back up, maybe head over toward the Aleutian Islands. And troughs like to regain position over the Canadian Prairie, over the Northwest. We generally have ridging that sometimes moves from here out into the open Atlantic. But the jet stream pattern runs right in between that. And we're going to see if that's the case as we move forward, because those same years, when you look at precipitation anomalies, kind of put them all together, we're drier in Texas, drier in California, no subtropical jet. But if the flow comes in and around and exits, this just tends to give us near normal precipitation, maybe even a little bit wetter than normal. And watch this. The models right now are attempting to take this deep trough that's going to be over us much of this week. See that one right there? And they're going to move it. Let me just show you this. Through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We just keep rebuilding these troughs, right? That's through the weekend. But watch what happens after the weekend. Tuesday of next week, Wednesday of next week, Thursday. See it? The trough is back here. We now see ridging. And that's going to change everything for the week 2 beyond pattern. The European models picked up on this. You see throughout the month of February, they back high pressure up here and move it out over the north, this part of the North Atlantic. And the resulting precipitation pattern is quite dramatic. We see that jet stream digging into the west. So it's coming in like this and then ejecting here. It's going to keep things very active from the mid-south to the mid-Atlantic and back to the Midwest into the Northeast. This is a large area that the models have honed in on above average precipitation. So I told you a couple months ago, I thought this drought was not going to stick around this winter. We've now got even better evidence that it's going to continue to kind of go away. Now from there, let's go talk about the near-term weather. Because we are seeing the extent of that cold air right now bring up freeze and frost warnings deep into Florida. And look at this. These more wind chill warnings for the upper Midwest and northern plains. And so, by the way, if they have wind chill warnings, it's brutally cold in that area. Now, as we look ahead to this next week, it's a lot different from the previous week. We now see favored, more drier conditions from the mid-Atlantic all the way back through the mid-South. We're going to watch for systems to roll through the base of that trough here. In fact, I want to go out and show them to you right away. So this is going to start off with European model run. Let's just get right here this morning, 6 a.m. As we play this forward through the day on Monday, you see our first coastal low taken off right here. But the latest projections keep it pretty far to the south because of how expansive this high pressure cell is. That is a monster of a high pressure cell. So it took that low, which could have run up the coast, and shoved it farther to the south here. All right, so that's through Wednesday. We're staying drier. High pressure moves over us Thursday into Friday. And then on Friday, we're going to watch for a weak little front to be coming out of the north and west that's going to swipe over parts of the Appalachian Mountains, but it's not delivering much precip. But you can see as that front meets up with the next upper level shortwave that's coming out into this area, that we could be watching this weekend for another coastal low. Now, it's like the third week in a row that I give you a video on Monday, and all the action is 5, 6, 7 days away. So this is how things look Friday night into Saturday morning from the current model forecast. And I've been looking at the ensembles. I've been trying to understand if the path of this is right. And it's just, we're too far out to say. But there will be a big reinforcing shot of cold air behind this. And what we need to look out for is if this low does hug the coast, or if it trends westward with time. That just seems like what would happen given what we've seen so far this year. Or does it actually fade and get pushed because the high pressure that's behind it here expands? All three options are still in play. What we are doing right now is we're in an observation mode. We're like, all right, we need to see each model run, which is why I produce a daily report you can have access to. Please take advantage of that, because I'll be watching for this later on this week. Now, from there, why don't we just take a moment to take a look at total precipitation through this week? Because I'll just play this out through Wednesday, Thursday. Nothing. See, we're going to be dry throughout much of this week. Cold, but dry. That's the system right there that's popping out over the weekend. And so we're going to watch that one carefully to see if it all, see it right in here, if it moves at all back to the west. So really, through your next 7 days, should that system stay out over open ocean, we're going to go over drier. And we're going to talk about the temperatures in a few moments. But you know what I'm about to say. That pattern shift is going to happen into February. And already by the middle of the first week, the ridge is backed up. The trough is here. Look at this ridge. So that flow has to come south and then run up over that ridge. And that process brings southwest flow in the jet stream, which is why when you look out there, look, we're already starting to see it. Much more active first week of February than what we're going to finish January with. So let's get ready for this, because it could just be a more active month. Temperature-wise, let's go talk about that. We've got today still some cooler air hanging on, and then tomorrow that's going to be our mild day. We've got temperatures here that are going to be trying to get back in the 50s, but look at the cold air in place, because by Wednesday, now that takes us back down here into Thursday, still cool, getting into Friday. Here comes that front. Remember we talked about it right in through here? There it is. So now, this will be the day that the low will be running up the coast, so it's got all of that cold air wrapped around the back side of it here. So we're going to watch out for that on Saturday getting into Sunday. That'll be the event to watch late this week. But beyond that point, look at this. This is day 5 through 10, so we're still dealing with, into early next week, that colder air. But day 10 through 15, you see it, I see it, troughs backing up, milder air under ridging. But with that, just look right here. Here's the mild air, here's the cold air. The jet stream will run right in between that. And that gives us a much more active week 2 time period. Now, is the polar vortex going to come over here? Because you see the Canadian prairie going to be very, very cold. It's not. It's quite strong and steady. And unlike a year ago, where we were preparing for brutally cold air from the Canadian prairie to Texas, that's not the case this year. The polar vortex is quite strong. And last year it was way down here in terms of its strength. So that's some good news overall. So we've got this next maybe month and a half figured out for North America. Let's talk about South America. Lately, very heavy rains in parts of Argentina and Uruguay. And over the next week, we're going to see the heavier rains migrate north into southern Brazil. And as I let this 1 week sliding window show you how things shape up into February, see a couple of important things. The models are honing in on a region into here that's going to show up wetter. A little bit drier to the north, where they're trying to rapidly make harvest progress on soybeans and plant the safrinha crop of corn. And the models keep hinting at going back over drier into Argentina. Now, when I think about this has a play on La Nina. This has a play on what's called the Antarctic Oscillation, the behavior of the MJO. But what I'm most interested in is the models have been extremely consistent with this, which means whatever the dominant factor is, they're not letting go of it, and it's verifying. In fact, we can take this and even look out even farther. What I want to now show you is the whole month of February. Ready? Let's get that out there. And even into early March, and you see that same corridor is going to be wet. Now, what's the significance? 40% of Brazil's growing areas here, and it saw record drought in December in places and throughout much of January. It's just been recently that the precipitation's come back in. But what I want to know is that safrinha corn crop is going in, that safrinha cotton crop is going in here, and planting pace is on time. Is there any indication that this La Nina, the La Nina may cause a slowing down of the monsoon? Well, this is what I did. Took all those same La Nina years. Remember, we were doing this analysis earlier for us, but I looked March through May. And interestingly enough, there's a decent signal in through here that we tend to be drier March through May. And that would mean that the monsoonal circulation, which drives the precipitation that provides the moisture for that safrinha crop, which is, again, cotton and corn, may weaken early. And that could be important for the total productivity. So I'm going to watch that carefully. I'll watch it all, and I'll keep reporting back to you every Monday. Until next Monday, have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk to you then. Thank you.